It's new music today on the WEpodcast network. I'm Corey Robertson. Mike Campbell is on the board of directors at Music Nova Scotia, manages singer-songwriter Joel Plaskett, and is the owner-operator of the Carlton Bar and Grill in Halifax, one of the premier live venues in Canada. Mike, good day to you. Good to talk to you again.
Nice to see you, Corey.
Mike, wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you look for when you're booking artists, when you're bringing in live artists into your venue. What are you really looking for?
Well, first and foremost, in the best of all possible worlds, we're looking for acts that have not just talent but an audience. We'd like to book people that will actually bring folks in through the door. Now, that, of course, is a very difficult thing. Not all acts tour across the country, and it doesn't matter who you are. At some point, you're playing a place for the very first time. Mm-hmm. So when people are approaching me about it, I like to see a nice reason. If it's coming in an email, which is the best way to do it, then a nice, well-written email along with links to the work and hopefully some streaming links or video from YouTube or Vivo or something, right. And some just that little extra spark of something that makes you get excited about the prospect of seeing the band live.
That's the spark. That's what I wanted. That's what I just wanted. Maybe if you could just give me a little bit more on that, because I think, having gotten to know you the way I have, boy, if you've got one thing, it's an ear for music and good music. What is that spark? Is there a way you can quantify that?
I can quantify by giving you examples of stuff that, for instance, a few years ago, I got an email from an agent who said, hey, we got a band coming through. They're headed your way. They're a priority. We think they're really good. The date we've got is a Wednesday in April. We'd like to do something with the band. We'd like it to be at your venue. And my response to him was basically, well, if they've never been out here before, nobody's going to know who they are. Right. It almost doesn't really matter whether they're really good or not, because I guarantee you, Halifax these days, much like everywhere else in the country, people are close-fisted with their money. They don't want to take a chance. They don't want to do all kinds of things that maybe they did in the past. So he gave me the pitch and said, well, the band's really dynamic. They're really interesting. And another cool thing about them is that they all work in film and they make their own videos, and they've just done one for a track from the debut record. Why don't I send you the link and you can take a look at it and then decide whether or not you think you want to take a chance. So he sent me the link. I clicked on it. There was only maybe 1,500 views or something at the time. Okay. And the band was July Talk and the track was Paper Girl. So I got about as far as Leia's vocal coming in after Peter Drananis' vocal started. And the second she started to sing, I phoned him and said, I don't care if no one knows who this band is. I think they're fantastic. I will take the date. It was a Wednesday night, as I mentioned, in April, and I'm going to sell it out. But there's a couple of things. We're going to have to do it my way. Nobody knows who they are, so I know it's a 5-piece band and they're touring, but we're going to have to keep the cover charge low, so maybe that'll cover their expenses if we sell the place out, but I will do my damnedest. And it took me 3 months to do it, but I did sell it out, and it turned out to be the band's first sold-out show outside of Toronto. And that turned into we sold it out, and then had them back 3 months later, sold out 2 shows, and the ticket price went from $10 to $15. Sure. And then, so that was in July, and then in December I had them back again, but they'd already outgrown my club, so I had to do it at the Seahorse. Sold that out, and then added a matinee show at the Carlton, sold that out as well.
Right.
So another one might be like a Steve Poltz or something, who's just, if you've never seen Steve, he's probably the single most talented solo artist I've ever seen in my life, and I booked him into the Carlton, and decided I'd do 3 nights in a row, assuming that if we got people out for the first night, they would tell their friends, and more people would come the second night, and they'd tell their friends, and then we'd have, maybe a full house on the third date, and we managed to do that. And I've had Steve play, even though he was living in San Diego in those days, he's played my place over 40 times in the last 9 years, and we sell him out all the time now.
Yeah, and and you're right about Paul. Yeah, you're right about Poltz, man. He is, just to listen to his stories, and for those who don't know, he's written a couple of Jules' bigger songs that she had in the '90s, I'm with you on this one, Mike. He's just absolutely spectacular to see him play live. You guys got the ECMAs coming up. Talk to me just a little bit about the importance of that in the Canadian music scene.
Well, East Coast Music Awards started out as a bunch of industry people here in Halifax way back in the day, getting together because they thought that there was enough talent here that they should create an award show for it. And the first one happened in a bar, as they often do. And then, because of the talent on display and because the industry, full industry with management and agents and all the rest of it was basically just getting underway out here in some formalized fashion. But they picked a great time to do it. And over the years, it eventually turned into a larger thing. The CBC in Atlantic Canada decided to produce a television show for the award show a few years in. And it became a huge hit at the time. Most of the music being celebrated then was more traditionally based. So, the joke was always if you didn't have a fiddle in the band, you didn't have a chance of winning.
Right.
But that show continued. The ratings were great. It became a national broadcast. In fact, it was one of only 2 national music broadcasts that the CBC did. The other one, of course, being the Junos. Right. And that went on for years and years and years until live music things were a little bit out of fashion. The audience, the broad-based network television audience isn't quite there the way it used to be. But in the heyday, if you won an ECMA, you were on the television show, your album sales spiked, and it opened the door to people from out here touring the rest of the country because of being exposed on that. So the national television broadcast isn't quite the same. But there is still one. It's online these days as opposed to aired over network TV. Right. But it's still considered to be a big deal if you are nominated for an ECMA. And if you win one, it still does really good things for your career. It's hard to say whether the talent from this part of the world would have been exposed as well without that show. I doubt very much. So I think it's almost impossible to say exactly what the effect has been out here, but it's certainly a hugely, hugely important thing and still is.
Absolutely. And we've actually got a ECMA nominee coming up just in a couple of minutes. I know you know her well. I got Christine Campbell coming in for a basement session here in about 5 minutes time. Tell me about what makes this girl so special.
Well, Christine is one of those, triple threats. Yeah. She's a great guitar player. She's a super nice human being. She's a good-looking young woman, so her voice. I mean, it's people argue about whether she's a better guitar player or a piano player than she is a singer. But you can have that argument all day. She's got one of those voices that stops people in their tracks. I've seen her do it. In rooms all over the place. I do Music Nova Scotia does a showcase event at Canada Music Week every year at Rivoli called the Tiki Lounge, named after my garage.
Yes.
And in Halifax, and we always showcase singer-songwriters and then bands during that showcase thing. And I had Christine on it a few years ago. And that thing is an invitation-only thing for industry people, managers, and agents and talent buyers and that sort of thing. And Christine got up. Everyone pays attention first and foremost. And when she opened her mouth to sing, everybody shuts up and pays attention. And she works really, really hard. So that combination of all those talents together is pretty rare. And Christine's one of those folks, I think, that has the talent to go all the way if she gets some breaks.
Awesome. Hey, Mike, as I wrap this thing up, I just got to step into the time machine real quick here.
Oh, yeah.
Fun fact for those that don't know, you're one of the original guys from when MuchMusic first launched, and with Mike's Excellent Cross Canada Adventures. Just a couple of crazy stories from when you and Mike Rhodes were just traveling all around the country and doing your show on Much. Just a couple of fun stories that maybe spring to mind after all these years.
Well, there's 1,000 stories, of course. We spent a lot of our time traveling across the country looking for stupid things, like big things, like the world's largest pierogi on a fork and that kind of stuff. And we often told ourselves that the show is not, in any way, shape, or form, a daredevil show. However, when we were presented the opportunity, quite often it turned into a daredevil show. So I can say, without fear of contradiction, that probably the coolest thing that we ever did was head to Cold Lake, Alberta, to fly F-18s with the 416 Squadron in Cold Lake. Who, and most people don't get the opportunity to go up in an F-18. I would suggest that if anyone presents to you with that opportunity, you should take them up on it. So the flight itself was sensational, but the tougher part was hanging out with them after hours, where we were introduced to a drink called the Afterburn, which is the squadron drink, which involves lighting Sambuca on fire in your mouth. And then sprinkling cinnamon into the flame. It's dangerous, but you can do it at home. Just make sure you've got a spotter. And I don't know. We spent a day in Calgary at the Winter Olympics bobsled track. So we got to do the 4-man bobsled, the luge, and the skeleton bob, which is, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that's face first on a little metal sled. Yeah. And they just push you off over the edge, and you hang on for dear life and hope you don't die. So those were a couple.
Mike, I sure appreciate you taking some time to join me on New Music today. Mike Campbell is a board member of Music Nova Scotia and the owner of one of the finest live venues in Canada, the Carlton Bar and Grill. Mike, continued success, and thanks for joining.
Thanks a lot, Corey.
This is New Music today on the WePodcast Network. I'm Corey Robertson. Thank you so much for joining me. Christine Campbell, singer, songwriter, and musician from Halifax, is on tour in Ontario. Her new album, Roller Coaster, is out and joins us for another basement session here. Christine, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
How's the tour in Ontario?
Great. Pretty typically awesome. Every time I get out on the road, it just gets better as it goes. And we had a couple Toronto releases, and sold lots of merch and spreading the word of the new album, Roller Coaster.
Excellent. So Roller Coaster is the album. You've just come out of Toronto, and you had a chance to play at a pretty legendary place, Lee's Palace.
Mm-hmm. And Cameron House was the main CD release. As an East Coast artist, kind of busting down that Ontario door, is what's the work required behind that? I could be here all day.
Yeah, right?
I'm telling you about connecting the dots to do a tour.
Sure.
And there's always one little thing that goes wrong that has a ripple effect, and you have to start at the other end again with just communicating with booking places and your bandmates and travel and sleeping arrangements and hotels. But in the end, it always works out. I'm always probably at my peak stress level right before it, but as soon as I'm on the road, I'm happy.
Tell me about your album, Roller Coaster.
Well, that's really broad. It's a very eclectic album. And it's got a lot of blues and soul to it. It's got some old school rock, which is where I basically have most of my inspiration. Old 70s, old school rock is pretty much what I love more than anything. Right. But I also wanted to just add something to it to make it something different, because I don't want to reiterate what everybody else has already done.
Sure. So on the Roller Coaster album, there's some production from Classified, and I got to believe that's where some of the blues influence, or at least the R&B influence, is coming from.
Yeah, because definitely I have a very naturally bluesy voice, so I almost kind of got into the blues scene. Just that's how it happened. It just kind of, sometimes things just work out a certain way, and my voice seems to kind of tie me in with that. And I love old school 70s rock, so that's based on the blues. But with hip hop, basically with the hip hop background of Classified, that's where the R&B did come from. So it kind of was eclectic that way. My old school rock roots kind of show on the end of the album. And I also have my piano in there. There's some classical stuff. So it's really all over the place, hence the name Roller Coaster.
Right. Absolutely, and it is a hell of a ride, I'll tell you. Let me also. I want to ask you about your songwriting process, because there's times you're writing solo, you're writing on your own, and then there's times you're getting together. And I know you just sort of in part of your tour in Ontario, you've put some time aside for doing that. A little bit of the difference in your process then when you're with somebody else collaborating and versus when you're on your own and you've got some ideas.
Well, it really varies. Like, I've been out to Nashville a few different times, loved the experiences, but it's totally different with every person. Blake and I have written a few different songs for this. He's helped me with the writing for a few of my favorite ones on the album. And with the Classified, it was me going in and kind of bouncing off ideas and him helping chisel what I'd already written. So he also co-wrote some things in his way, and some of them I just wrote myself. So, yeah. And some people, write the song for you because it's about them, but they don't know. Inspire you that way. So it's really all over the map. There's no really great algorithm. It's just whatever happens, and hopefully you let the song guide you and stop trying to force it into something.
Well, let's get into the first song then. I'm absolutely over the moon for this song. I'd asked you a couple of days ago if you guys would take the request for me to do Can't Stop the Clock. But before you and Blake get into it, just tell me what's behind the song.
Well, this one is actually produced by Blake. And I wrote it with my buddy Charlie Acorts, and so Blake's gonna sing his parts today. But he's a great blues musician, amazing voice, great guitar player, really hilarious guy. So we've been trying to get songwrites on the go for a long time. We're both really busy, and even when we do some kind of blues meltdowns together, we do a lot of shows together where we're on the same bill. Sometimes use a house band when I can't bring my own band along, and we just still couldn't find the time. So it was about my life running out of time always, and his too. So, yeah.
All right, this is Christine Campbell, and this is Can't Stop the Clock on New Music Today.
All I gotta do, I'm running around, burning holes in my shoes,
wasting away in a no-horse town. I shoot for the moon just to get off the ground.
Even when I think I get ahead, running behind, losing time, can't stop the clock. Time for love, and you can keep your heartache. So many hassles, can't concentrate.
Gotta get down to business, so get out of my way. No time for tomorrow, I need it yesterday, yeah.
Even when I think I get ahead, running behind, losing time, can't stop the clock. Can't stop the clock, keeps on ticking.
Christine Campbell, Blake Johnson, and that is Can't Stop the Clock. Wow. Guys, tell me a little bit about your growing up and learning to play, because this is just some absolutely outstanding just musicianship here. Taking lessons, learning music.
Well, I started as a pianist, a classical pianist. My mom put me in it, and I really didn't want to play it, and she raised my allowance, and so I stayed in it, and I'm really glad that I did, because now I do play piano at performances, and I do write songs on it. I prefer guitar overall, but I still love piano, and it creates another aspect to look at songs from. But piano was always with a teacher. It was always like learning by the book, like studying everything, doing theory. And with guitar, it was just by feel, and the scales that didn't seem to pertain to the classical piano that I was playing, all the scales that I almost like disregarded, seemed to be more prevalent in guitar. So it was really interesting. Two very different things. Even though I had an ear for guitar, it was really difficult because it was two different approaches. But these days, I feel like they're kind of crossing over, and the theory is starting to apply a little bit more to guitar, and piano, I'm starting kind of being able to go off the cuff.
And, you know, and there's something about having a teacher, a mentor doing those things. And we just got to say thank you so much, Lesson Lounge in Leamington, for sponsoring the show. When you sponsor shows like this, you're sponsoring local music, you're sponsoring musicians. And I got to tell you, I've had a couple of people now come in to talk about just the importance of having music in your life. You know, and that's where I kind of want to talk to you just a little bit here. There's having music in your life, and then there's making a life out of music, which is where you're getting to. So, can you speak to sort of that difference?
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to reiterate what I feel that I took in, I guess you could say. I don't really feel like it's an option or a choice to be a musician. I think once I came to terms with the fact that that's what I just feel I was put on this earth to do, life was so much easier, and it was just great. And but before that, it was a little bit tough. But growing up, I mean, I could kind of dive into different aspects of my life or different periods where music really pulled me along through some really dark, hard times. Whether it was like my dad and my Uncle Elbo's record collection, that was a big one through grade school, where I went through some really weird, isolated phases where I just didn't seem to fit in anywhere, and that was kind of my refuge. And so I went through another phase a few years ago. I've gone through different phases of my life, but that time in particular, I just was kind of having a frustrating time, and nothing in life at all seemed to just kind of do anything for me. And the only thing that really kind of came out of that was guitar, and it was just without any pressure. That's the only time you can kind of discover what you really want to do, when money and everything kind of becomes meaningless. Yeah. And that's what it was for me, and it kind of carried me through a time. It made me realize where my inner peace was. So for me, that's what that was. And now with music, even though, I mean, I would be writing no matter what, but I do try to write a little bit more these days, especially in my latest album. It went from like ex-boyfriends and whiskey to deeper issues that had to do with like depression and loneliness, and ultimately kind of finding your inner strength and continuing the fight that we all do at one point or another.
Absolutely.
And I hope that my music can create the solace for some people the way that a lot of music did for me.
You know, and that's to me what music does, at least in my life. Whether I'm talking about it, whether I'm just listening to it on my own, it somehow has a way of taking you back. You've mentioned a couple of times now your dad's music collection. What kind of music? You mentioned Elbow. I caught that one. Yeah. What did you grow up on? What other? You mentioned a lot of '70s rock in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
What are some awesome albums or things that you grew up on?
Well, Zeppelin and Deep Purple, sure. And I mean. Queen, Brian May is my favorite guitar player. Ian Gillan, my favorite singer. Yeah. Heart, Joplin, all those kinds of bands. The Stones, the Guess Who Best Of album, that was a big one for me. And just really old school rock. Creedence was another big one. I've definitely gone through some other phases too. Like I went through a pretty heavy Metallica phase. I loved Kill 'Em All.
Right.
I loved Jesus Christ Superstar and Antichrist Superstar. So that's kind of a weird top 10 album collection.
But it's the rock opera, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to love Queen, honestly, I don't know if I'm going for a stretch here. If somebody's going to love Queen, then to me it makes perfect sense. You're going to love Jesus Christ Superstar. It's a rock opera.
I guess so.
You know?
It just depends. It's the music, really. I mean, I wouldn't name a ton of musicals as like my favorite, but for that one, I just think the music's so good and the singing's so good. Yeah. The pants are so friggin' cool. But it really just varies. Like I like soul, and I feel like there was something about the 70s. It was a rawness, but still had like amazing groups of people coming together. And we're always arguing about whether it's tape or whether people did it live off the floor or they were just playing at a certain level and in front of a bunch of audiences, or I don't know if it was the drugs of the time or what, but people just really, in my opinion, that was where it was at. But there's some pretty cool things these days, too, that inspire me. Just seeing the collaborations of old school ways and new things and just combining sounds that nobody ever thought of before.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get some more sounds from you. I think you said you wanted to do another one of your songs. You wanted to do Last Man Standing, you said?
Yeah. I was... We were singing pretty late last night. And
Yeah.
I haven't drank water in like 2 days, so this is probably I'm gonna hit puberty a couple of times here, I think.
Tell me about the song as you get into it.
It was the one produced by Classified, one of the three.
Yep.
And this is one that was kind of like the beat itself was something that always kind of went in my head. A lot of times I'll get like a tagline or something that I can't really get out of my brain. Sometimes I don't even want to write it, but it's like I have to just to get it out of there and move on. But that was kind of like my little anthem whenever I was just really kind of going through a phase where I felt like I was just falling apart and you feel really weak and you just need to like tell yourself, like, get up, you're like your own coach sometimes. And that was the beat that just continued on in my brain every time. I started doing it more, and that's what the song has come to mean to me, just to remind me to be tough until you feel tough again, because every wave passes. Every negative wave, every positive wave will pass too, but it'll pass to a negative, which will pass again. So.
Very nicely said. This is Last Man Standing. This is Christine Campbell with Blake Johnston on New Music Today.
Sometimes I feel like an empty shell, like my own mind is a prison cell. Feel myself sinking lower. Somebody poke me, I might fall over. Gotta keep cool, gotta maintain pace. Even when you feel foolish, like you lost the race. Not when it suits up to take, it's long after you feel like you'll break. It's alright, alright. Hush, little darling, it's alright. Hide your eyes till it's time to fight. Hush, little darling, I'll be the last man standing. Whoa, last man standing. Oh, last man standing. I'll always be the last man standing. I can shed my shame like an old snake skin, so empty inside that I might cave in. Bruised up pride in this body gave in, but I can't let them win. Even when you feel near to the floor, you gotta hold your head high. Keep smiling, don't ever let them see you cry. Faith, my friend, knees may be weak, but they'll march me straight to the end. Amen. Alright, alright. Hush, little darling, it's alright. Hide your eyes till it's time to fight. Hush, little darling, I'll be the last man standing. Whoa, last man standing. Oh, last man standing. Always be the last man standing. Alright, hush, little darling, it's alright. Alright, alright, hush, little darling, it's alright. Alright, alright, hush, little darling, it's alright. Alright, alright, hush, little darling, it's alright. It's alright, alright, hush, little darling, it's alright. Hide your eyes, it's time to fight. Hush, little darling, I'll be the last man standing. Whoa, last man standing. Oh, last man standing. I'll always be You got to hold your head up high. Don't ever let them see you cry. You got to hold your head up high. Don't ever let them see you cry. Last man standing.
Last man standing. That is Christine Campbell. Wow. Thank you, guys. One of the things that has brought you to our area, and we've already been talking now, about how music can heal and phases people go through, and sometimes we have tough times in our life. And one of the things that have brought you to our specific area here in the Windsor area is an event that you guys are playing to benefit a group called the House of Sophrosine. And what an amazing program. For those that don't know, it is part of the Hiatus House, and the program specifically for House of Sophrosine helps with programs for women recovering from substance abuse issues. So what a just an absolutely wonderful cause, and you guys are playing this thing to raise some money here in
We're
our
in the
area.
music industry, so
Yeah.
we know lots of people, I'm sure. Can
Right,
relate.
yeah.
It's good to use music for a good cause.
Yeah, well, and let's just get let's get kind of talk about that. I find that's a thing with musicians. It's so everybody is very easy to get on board with a cause.
Yeah,
Very
well,
giving.
I mean, I think it's kind of par for the course too, which is nice because I feel like everybody should kind of do it for eventually attach something to it. So it's really nice to be able to travel and actually like feel like you're doing some good. Like you got to push something forward, and
Yep.
and I think it's then it becomes a selfish reason because if you believe in karma,
Yeah.
but it's true. Like,
But there is something to be said for the power of positivity, and when you
Totally.
put good vibes out there and you put that positive energy out there.
and I
It
read a
comes
lot.
back.
I'm
Yeah,
very
it comes
positive
back.
or energy oriented, but also if you read a lot of books on happiness and documentaries on peace, like everybody's got a different perspective, but one underlying theme in every single one I've read is basically selfless acts of kindness. So if you can give a little bit back, you're actually gonna get a lot back,
Yeah.
more so than you might realize.
Yeah, and I believe that's the law of attraction. That's that whole idea of you put it out.
Plus, the
and
guy
something's
putting it
gonna
on, I mean, he's
Right.
just a wonderful, wonderful guy. Gary Demmons.
Yes.
He's one of just like in my business, it's kind of these days, especially to survive as a musician, you kind of need those super supporters, super fans. And Gary's just like a lover of music. He helps out everybody. He's just
Oh,
a big bear who's just part of my family now.
all right, guys, let's get a song from Blake here, because this guy's just tearing it up behind the two of us. Blake is a singer-songwriter on his own accord and producing many of your songs here as well. Blake's song is called "Play It Again, Sam." This is Blake Johnson and Christine Campbell.
Hey there, Mr. Folk Singer, you're just like Bob Dylan. Don't you be singing songs about the government. They won't do. It's just not cool, man, no. And hey there, Mr. Troubadour, in your hipster clothes. You're standing on a street corner singing songs no one knows what's with you. Well, I guess you're cool, man, yeah. I'm gonna play with my soul, play it again, Sam. I'm gonna play with my soul, play it again, Sam. Hey there, Mr. Policeman, with your gun and badge. You're writing tickets left and right. I bet you think you're bad. Write me too, and then forget you, man. And hey there, Mr. Politician, in your three-piece suit. Well, you're kissing, baby, shaking hands. You want me to vote for you? I won't do it. It's my right not to, man, yeah. I'm gonna pay it with my soul. Play it again, Sam. I'm gonna pay him with my soul. Yeah, play it again, Sam. I'm gonna play it with my soul. Play it again, Sam. I'm gonna play it with my soul. Play it again, Sam. I'm gonna play it with my soul. Play it again, Sam. I'm gonna play it with my soul. Play it again, Sam.
Blake Johnson's Play It Again, Sam, and Christine Campbell. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Blake, thanks a lot
Pleasure.
for coming by, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Christine, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been another edition of New Music Today, and next week, Windsor Essex Music Hall of Fame inductee David Light, and then Christy Palazzolo joins us. This is New Music Today on the WEpodcast Network. I'm Corey Robertson.